dark, feel your heart beat for something more. A subtle spark, a distant star is born. Holding out our hand, you breathe life into barren lands. From where I stand,
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Beersford Zion United Methodist Church. We are glad that all of you are here and all of you watching us online. As you know, we have a special morning this morning where we will be hearing during the sermon time from our youth about their experiences on the urban plunge and what it was to follow God this week. I'm going to start with a few announcements. School Shoots for Kids is coming up, so anybody who wants to bring in some shoes or some straight plug headphones or any money that can help Kathy cover any costs, I'd encourage you to do that. The actual giveaway is scheduled for August 17th and 18th. And if you do know of people that would like to sign up, there is signups available at Faith in Action and a few other places, or they're welcome to contact here if they need more information. The other big announcement I have is just to let you know that we have already changed the men's breakfast date from August 13th to August 20th. Just want to make sure that you guys are aware of that. And then just a continuing reminder, I think we are full, our last fellowship host sign up is this morning. So if you're interested in doing fellowship hosting for the next month, we would love to have you sign up. With that, I would invite you to stand if you are able for our opening song for the United Methodist Hymnal, number 369, Blessed Assurance. Please join me for our call to worship. We come to worship the triune God who creates, redeems, and sustains us all.
We come to worship God who never leaves us and yet whose purposes often seem hidden.
As the bulb hides the flower, as the seed hides the tree, as the cocoon hides the butterfly, so too does God bring forth life, even when we cannot see it.
We gather today to learn how to watch, wait, and anticipate the season when God's unrevealed work will come into the open.
As our end meets our beginning, as our doubt meets our believing, so too does God meet our brokenness with persevering love, unfolding a new reality of flourishing for all creation.
We gather today to learn how to love as God loves, so that we may be a part of bringing God's unrevealed work into the open. Amen.
Join me for our opening prayer. O God, remind us that the kingdom of heaven is like a tiny mustard seed. You have planted seeds of great potential in our souls. Help us develop our potential so that you and others can depend on it. O God, you have entrusted us with gifts and graces that can bless many people. Help us not overlook the smallest ability. O God, you have placed the destiny of the kingdom of heaven inside of us. Turn our attention to the small things that this congregation can do to make a tremendous difference in human lives. Amen. At this time, I want to invite you to pass the peace to one another. At this time, I would invite you to join Ed and stand for our next song. Ed wasn't sure what to do, so he was asking. Where are we at? United Methodist Hymnal 405, Seek Ye First the Kingdom of God. At this time, I would ask for any prayer requests or God moments from the last week. We did. We celebrated Joe's birthday on Thursday, which was a lot of fun. His sisters were even invited towards the end, and that was nice. And then it sounds like Niles was on the 28th, so some good birthdays this week. Any others?
I just want to thank all of you that have contributed so generously at the noisy bucket that we had, and also that I've just been receiving goods and monies for the school shoes for kids. I also wanted to mention for you adults, if you have some time on that Thursday and Friday, contact me because I could use a couple of hands to help with that. Also, I want to thank anyone who has volunteered
So again, just thank you to all the support that we've been getting for our Shoes for Kids program. It really does make a huge difference in this community, so we are very thankful for all that you guys do. We are still looking for a little bit of help, and maybe after you hear the kids talk today, that won't be a problem. Maybe some of you will feel inspired to step up that day and help out with the Shoes for Kids. Heck, maybe some of our kids will step up to help. You never know. We do have 2 adults. So so that's pretty cool, and I'm excited about that coming up. Any other prayer requests or God moments to share? All right. Yep, all the Sharp children are back in the house, and that's a good thing. I'm sure it was a good thing while they were gone as well, so a little bit. But yeah, just great to hear the stories, and I'm glad you all are going to be able to hear those stories this morning. All right, with that, let us pray. God, this morning we ask you to be with us here at Beersford Zion. We thank you for our youth and their successful trip to Omaha. Help us this morning to listen to their experiences and to hear your voice calling to us through their stories. God, be with our members in elder care facilities, those receiving medical help this week, those dealing with illness and pain, and those who have experienced loss. God, we ask you to continue to be with them, providing them comfort, providing them healing, and providing them care. God, we ask you to be with our Beersford community. We thank you for our successful old-fashioned weekend. I think there's still some pancakes to be eaten this morning, and we're thankful for the opportunity to come together and celebrate this wonderful community of Beersford. God, we ask you this morning to be with our world, its people, and its leaders. Help us to remember your call to love our neighbor. Help us to remember your call to put others before ourselves. Help us to follow you. God, we ask you to be with our church, its leaders, its members, and its mission. Be with our United Methodist brothers and sisters in all that we are doing to welcome and care for all those that come through our doors. We also ask you to help us to find more ways to leave these walls so that we can share the good news of Jesus Christ and the better way God is calling us to follow. Finally, God, we ask you to help us to pray together the prayer that Jesus taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to ask Brian to go ahead and pull up the verse because I did not write it down in my notes. Suppose I could bust out the Bible, but we'll cheat. There it is. All right, I'm going to read this and then we'll get started because I think it's important to keep this in mind as we hear from our youth this morning. This is from the book of Matthew, chapter 13, verses 31 through 33. He told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and planted in his field. Though it is the smallest of all seeds, yet when it grows, it is the largest of garden plants and becomes a tree, so that the birds come and perch in its branches. He told them still another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like yeast that a woman took and mixed into about 60 pounds of flour until it worked all the way through the dough. That's all it is. Just 3 verses this morning. That little mustard seed and that little yeast. We sent a bunch of little mustard seeds out to Omaha, so we're going to hear about that now. This morning I have the pleasure of inviting up our team of youth who attended our mission trip to Omaha and took part in our urban plunge. So at this time, I would invite up Alex, Chloe, Derek, Dustin, Joe, and Micaiah. For those that are wondering, Tori was with us as well, but she was not able to make it this morning. So I will be reading some of her answers and just throwing in my own comments for the spots where she was going to have a question. So that will be fun. As many of you know from Facebook, we were able to take part in a wide variety of experiences. aimed at helping our youth experience new cultures, working with people who are experiencing homelessness and people in need. And the goal was for them to discover their ability to serve others outside their comfort zone and to hopefully have a life-changing impact within the local communities of Omaha. In other words, we sent them out so they could learn what it means to love God and love others. This morning, I will be asking them questions that will help you understand what we were up to and to help us to continue to have conversations here about what it means to follow God. And so for you guys, are you ready? No, but that's okay. So to begin, I want to help you guys understand what we did this week. And so for those of us that followed us online, you know that we did a lot this week. But to help you, I'm going to have us go through the week with our youth, having each of them share about where we went and what we did. So our week began last Sunday as we gathered here Sunday afternoon and left for Omaha with our 7 youth, myself, and our amazing youth volunteers, Allison and Megan, who you will hear from in a little bit. And we arrived just about a little after 4, just enough time to be welcomed, throw our stuff into our rooms, and head to our first mission opportunity, the Hope Center. Makai is going to share a little bit about that place.
The Hope Center was a place where kids could get resources and help that they wouldn't normally get on a daily basis. They had a gym, skating rink, art room, area for schoolwork, and much more. And we got the amazing opportunity to paint a room in ugly purple.
For the record, it was an atrocious purple, but it did match the motif, so luckily it went with the blues and other colors, but the purple itself it made Pepto-Bismol look good. Let's just put it that way. So when you guys talk, go ahead and right here. It'll sound better. Yep. Our facility, and so after that we headed back to our facility in Northwest Omaha. Just so you guys know, it was a very nice facility. Part of why I chose coming to this place. We had 2 rooms with bunk beds. There was also a kitchen, a living area, and a dining room area. We even had a basketball court out back, and as I've shared with a few people, I've learned that bifocals and basketball do not mix. As the floor moved, the ground moved, and I may have face planted right in front of Joe. So Joe had by far the best view. If only he had a video to record a pastor just straight going face first into the ground, it would have been great. In addition, we did have another youth group with us, and funny enough, of all the places in the world a youth group could have come, they were from Sioux Center. So that was pretty fun to have them with us. We actually ran into them one time on Thursday, but had a good time getting to know them each night, and that was pretty fun. So the next morning on day 2 of our mission trip, we got up a little after 7 a.m., had some breakfast and devotion time, and headed to Scatter Joy Ranch. This was one of Tori's questions, and I can tell you that Tori had a wonderful time. Scatter Joy Ranch was a facility that started with a woman who had a passion for helping people and decided to start doing it through animal therapy. I think she started about 15 years ago on the south side of Omaha, continued building the ability for people to help and serve. You can see some pictures up there now of what we were doing to help there, and just started getting more and more animals. During the pandemic, it became necessary for her to move to the south side of Omaha, and she now has an amazing facility and has even been licensed on the similar licensing to a zoo so that she can have zebras, and we saw an albino kangaroo, which I still didn't know was a thing. We just had a really wonderful time. It was wonderful to hear her story of how she trusted God in the midst of beginning this facility and even moving to the south side of Omaha, and all her facilities able to do to help and serve specifically adults with special needs. Children's groups comes through, and like I said, a lot of therapy for people that are struggling with different things. Nothing like a puppy or a goat to help you work through difficult times. After that, we headed to the African Community and Learning Center, and Dustin's going to share a little bit about that.
The African Community and Learning Center is an organization that helps refugees that have fled from Sudan and those that are still in Sudan. We got the opportunity to talk to Seth. He told us a lot about about how they can help in their community of North Omaha and around Omaha, as well as bringing back resources, money, etc., back to Sudan to help them that need help in Sudan. they also help Sudan people be able to learn English, just like just in adults too, not just kids. Anybody that needs help learn English. And we also got the opportunity to go to another one of their buildings there. We got to paint a bunch of furnishings that'll be going in that building.
Thank you. Then we headed down to the Jean Leahy Mall, where we heard about the needs of different parts of Omaha. We actually walked around the 4 parts of that park area, praying specifically for the different needs of the city. It was a good moment just to kind of reflect and see all that is done and all that is needed in the Omaha community. After that, we returned and met up with Seth, had some different dinner at a local taco shop where we enjoyed great conversations, learning about the amazing people and all they do for their community. After returning and getting cleaned up, we actually headed out for a fun night and went to the Old Market in downtown Omaha, and Dustin's going to share a little bit about that.
We got the opportunity to, after a great day of serving the community of Omaha, we got to walk down Old Market and enjoy time spending together. We walked by a lot of stores, and we got the opportunity to walk in a couple of them. I mean, a lot of them were restaurants, and we had already ate, so I mean, we didn't walk in a bunch, but it was just a great time interacting with one another and just spending time together.
And I will say, for those of us like myself, they're a little older, they had this store with like toys from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and Allison and 90s. And so Allison and Megan and I were just in heaven, and the kids just were like, what's going on? They're like, why are these old toys? Who wants these old toys? So if you're looking for a way overpriced toy from your childhood, go to downtown Omaha, and they'll have them there. I said I wanted to bring my wife back to try to convince her to let me buy Transformers. The answer would be no, but I would try. So anyways. Day 3 started once again with breakfast and devotion before heading to the Beautiful Gate, and Chloe's going to share about that.
Beautiful Gate was a street ministry in a rough part of Omaha. It was run by a lady named Heidi. Beautiful Gate is a judgment-free place that helps anyone no matter the circumstances. While we were there, we went on a prayer walk, praying over the people and around the street ministry. We worshiped when we first got there, and we also helped Heidi around the place.
Just hold on to it for a second, because we then ate some lunch and headed to the Open Door Mission Distribution Center, and Derek's going to talk about that.
All right, so the Open Door Distribution Center was the ministry that we actually came back to a second time throughout the week, doing multiple different things. But during our time there, we sorted through clothing. It was actually a startup program that they're doing right now. Because of how hot it was in Omaha, they were trying to go through and find shorts and light colored shirts for all the people on the street that might not have any. We also, the second time we were there, we started emptying boxes of donations and sorting them, along with also restocking shelves, because it was practically like a walk-in store. People could come in there, have a shopping cart, and then go through and find things they need. So we spent a lot of time there getting that all sorted out and prepped for the people to come through.
And I will just add, we had a lot of fun there, being there twice. We learned that Dustin fits in large boxes, and that was pretty exciting. It was pretty cool. And then I will tell you, there was the miracle of the shorts on the first day we were there. We walked in and they told us that there was no way they had enough men's shorts, but they wanted us to go through the boxes to see what we could do. And I know at least I and Kevin, who you'll hear about in a minute, took that as a challenge. And fortunately, due to the extremely long arms of Joe, we were able to reach into the bottom of these boxes where none of the short people had ever ventured. And we not only found enough shorts, we found so many shorts, they asked us to stop giving them more shorts. So we called it the miracle of the shorts, AKA, thank goodness Joe has very long arms. So it was pretty awesome. We next headed just across to another building at the Open Door Mission to the Men's Center to serve food, and Makai is going to share about that.
At the Open Door Mission Men's Center to serve food, it's a place where people who are staying in the facility, because they have like housing and stuff, or just people who are homeless, but the facility is a dry center, so nobody can be like on substances while you're there. We served kids, women, and men. meals on 2 different occasions. We served 2 nights, and a lot of the people there are just going through the treatment, and it was just an awesome experience.
And I will speak briefly. We're going to tell some more stories here in a minute, but I will say on the first night we were there, I met a guy named William who apparently the Sioux Center group had met the day before. He was a guy who had been there, received help, was currently serving and making a difference in that community to help others that were in a situation he had been in. And apparently the day before when Sioux Center was there, he was telling them that he was going to be heading for an interview to be a flight attendant. And so the next day when we saw him, he was just in a crazy good mood, and I didn't quite understand why anybody there would be in that good a mood. And he shared that he had gotten the job, and then in just a couple weeks, he was going to be going to flight attendant training and would be a flight attendant. And considering that a year before he was homeless and addicted and really struggling in life, it was amazing to see his story and to see the change that can happen when a group of people come together and show people love and kindness and compassion. So that was something that affected me, and I really, they'll tell you that when we meet back on Thursday and William wasn't there, I was pretty bummed, but that's okay. William's going to do great. Our day 4 began a bit earlier, but again with our breakfast and devotion. That devotion was a really important moment for us to kind of center ourselves each day. Before we headed to our first activity of what was our longest day, the Sozo Coffee and Great Adventure Ministries, and Alex is going to share about that.
So Sozo's Coffee was this coffee shop that was started in a basement, and it was a couple Christians that decided, hey, let's start a coffee shop. But then they turned it into an area where they have church, they do different groups like AA groups, it's a space that people can rent out, and before we helped them with any mission, we went on a prayer walk, and it was really cool because we got to pray over the city and the old market and just that area. And then we came back and we did some mission work where we split up, and personally, I had to clean out a grease trap, which was not very much fun, but it was work that had to be done.
He did personally volunteer for the grease traps, so he has no one to blame for himself. But that was really cool because it was a ministry geared for young adults in downtown near the old market. So it was one of the few places that were still operating, still reaching people, and essentially teaching all of those young people in that community what it is to serve, what it is to grow. They talked about how on Halloween night in Old Market, often poor choices are made. So they serve pancakes and tell people about Jesus from midnight to 4 a.m., which sounds like a pretty fun time. But just how that impacts that community, letting people know that all are welcome and that Jesus loves all of them. After that, we ate a bit of lunch and headed to the Cross Training Center, and Joe's going to share a little bit about that.
The Cross Training Center was an area for people who are homeless or are on the verge of going homeless to receive proper job training and just to go through the work of showing up on time, doing the job, leaving, lunch break, things like that.
Awesome. Yeah, it was a good organization, been started by some people that came out of the Open Door mission. And really just, I don't think we think about it a lot up here in Beersford, but for a lot of people that maybe didn't have a stable home or didn't live in a stable community, they don't know simple things like what it means to show up to work on time, what it means to put in an 8-hour shift, what it means to listen to instructions and follow directions and to get stuff done. And so this is really working towards giving people that opportunity, whether it be teenagers or adults that maybe had a hard time to learn those skills so they could be fully readjusted and fully integrated into society. After that, we then headed to Catholic Charities, and Joe is going to tell you about that as well.
The Catholic Charities building was for families who needed groceries or stuff like that, and they could drive in and they'd scan like a card or something, and you'd be able to get as many families as you needed, and it was perishable items, produce, stuff like that they had all donations to them. It was pretty cool to see how that worked.
Can you describe what time of day we were out there distributing food?
From 4 to 6, I believe.
Yep. And that would have been, if those of you who recall, what was that, Thursday or was that Wednesday? That was Thursday. Maybe you recall the temperature here on Wednesday. It was a little hotter. And so where was this food distribution at? Was it inside in the comfort of air conditioning?
Half of it was, but the other half
sure. Yeah.
The other half was outside.
Yeah. So we're outside, they're driving through with their cars to pick up items, and there we are out there working our tails off, trying to cycle through so that we can all take turns being inside getting stuff prepped. But it was crazy hot, and I think we'll hear a little bit more about that here in a minute, so I don't want to give away too much. We then finally, after a hard, hot, long day, went to a local favorite in Omaha, Mama's Pizza, and Alice is going to share a little bit about that.
So Mama's Pizza was a really cool place. We got to have fellowship and just got to eat pizza and talk about the day. And one of the things I want to point out that was kind of funny was John saying, "I'll win a prize." And we were all like, eh. He goes over there to the machine, has his dollar, puts it in there, wins a prize, and then hits continue thinking, oh, I'm going to go for the medium prize, and loses his prize and wasn't able to continue, and then comes over really disappointed because he didn't get his prize.
Apparently they were taking sad pictures of me as I was very, very sad. I was completely duped. I don't normally play those games. And so I did really well thinking, well, of course I want the bigger prize. And I didn't know that if you go for the bigger prize, you're not going to get the bigger prize. It was very sad. And they really enjoyed taking pictures of me and laughing. So that's good. And that was all Wednesday. I know all the days blur together, but that was actually Wednesday for that. So day 5 was another early day, and after breakfast and devotion, we headed for our final full day of service, which was to Mandan Park and Playground. And Derek's going to share a little bit about that.
All right, so the Mandan Park project was a full manual labor project for I think about 2 hours. They brought in a whole bunch of new sand to the park that we were supposed to spread around. Before we even did that, we cleaned up sticks, trash, just made the place look a lot nicer before we even spread the sand. And of course we got some really fun pictures of some people going down the slides or also sitting on little toys, myself included. So it was really just a project to clean up a park that is in a poor part of Omaha that now hopefully will be utilized again.
And it was South Omaha, and it was clearly a park that used to have a prominent place in that city, but had been let go. And the city was trying to come in and do the right thing and make it a good place again. And so we were part of that chain, getting it ready because they were going to start building some facilities to help kids learn about nature, have experiences. They were going to work on some overlooks because it was a good spot to see the Missouri River if they just cut a few trees down. And so it was nice to know that although the job of moving sand is not a fun one, that we were a leg in the development of that park and the importance that was going to have to that community. After that, we went to the Sienna Francis House, and Chloe's going to share about that.
The Sienna Francis House is an organization that helps homeless people. It was an eye-opener because it was different due to the fact it was a wet house. It serves adults that are still struggling with addiction. While we were there, some of us served food to the people and others unloaded donations and sorted through what could or couldn't be used by the Sienna Francis organization.
It was very different for us to see that. Many of the people that we encountered were still currently and in that moment dealing with addiction. And so to see that with our own eyes was something that definitely affected us, but it was also that reminder that even in the face of those difficult situations, that we can still feed and we can still help. And I know a big part of their system was to try to get people that when they were finally ready for help, to be able to get access to that help. We then returned for our second trip to the Open Door Distribution Center, where we had a lot of fun, made a lot of friends. You'll hear about James here in a few minutes. You may have seen his picture from last week, as well as serving another meal at the Open Door Men's Center. That night we returned to the facility to kind of talk about our week, talk about what this morning would look like, and to celebrate Day 6 began with breakfast, packing, loading, and cleaning before saying goodbye to our new friends from Sioux Center and our guide for the week, Kevin. I do want to briefly talk about Kevin. Kevin was born in the Omaha area and had moved away many years before to serve in various parts of the country as a pastor and a church planter. And he just had a real heart for service, a real heart for helping people. Something that he did that made a huge difference for us was each day, wherever we went to serve, he would ask that someone would share their story, share how they ended up there and what they were doing, the story of their organization, the story of how they found themselves serving, and the story of how they followed God to make a difference in Omaha. And so we are going to share a little bit more about that right after I talk about the zoo. And so I will say this about our zoo trip. The zoo was very hot. The zoo was miserable, and in a nod to our youth, I will make a bad joke. So the zoo was so hot. Thank you. It was so hot that all the birds were laying hard-boiled eggs. That's I don't normally like inside jokes, but you're welcome. Ask them about the hard-boiled eggs later. They'll have a fun story for you about the hard-boiled eggs. But it was so hot that most of the animals didn't come out. And I will tell you that when you're at a zoo and the African savanna animals don't want to come out, it's probably a little too hot. The meerkats, nowhere to be found. The lions, not a chance. They were in some shady location. So I do believe that we broke the record for speed walking through a zoo. And considering I had a sprained ankle from the night before, that was pretty impressive as they just continued to walk ahead. And I noticed a few of them would look just to see if I was still alive, half a block behind them. But that was very nice of them to acknowledge I existed. So so we did that, and it was pretty nasty. I would love to tell you we had a great time all morning. We didn't. It was pretty bad, but luckily we got inside, got some food, and we did enjoy going to the Desert Dome, the aquarium, and the rainforest area. Another good sign that it's too hot outside when you're in the Desert Dome and the rainforest going, ooh, this is nice. So that's another sign that perhaps the zoo is too hot. So we then left for home, stopped briefly at Target as I gathered some supplies for my ankle, and then headed to Vermilion for some Pizza Ranch, and then came home last night, a little earlier than we had planned, but given the heat, probably well worth it. Hopefully they've gotten some sleep. I know I have. So at this time, I'm going to have each of our youth share the story of a person we met. These will either be a personal story about that person or a story they shared about their ministry. So the first person I'm going to have share is Micaiah, who's going to be sharing about James from the Open Door Ministry.
James was one of the people we met at the Open Door Distribution Center. Tori, Chloe, and myself got the opportunity to hear his story and just joke around with him. James has gone through quite a bit of stuff in his life, and what really struck me was that after 20 years of putting substances in his body, he decided to get help. When you think someone is lost and can't be returned to normal, just think of James and how he chose to get help and makes a choice every morning, even though it's hard, to put Jesus into everything he does. A quote that James has said is, "When you read God's word and pray, you're so filled with him and good that there's no reason to fill yourself with bad."
And I will tell you, not only did James make a big influence on our girls especially, but they made a huge influence on him. He joined us for dinner that night, and he thought we were coming back the next day, and I said, no, this is our last day. And you could see he was genuinely sad because of the impact that these girls had had on him. Showing him care and love and goofing around for a couple hours was a huge deal for James, and we're definitely going to miss James, and we're just so glad that he's on the good track, following God and making a difference. The next person I'm going to have share is me, on behalf of Tori. So I'll be sharing about joy. Using two mics is dumb. I'm gonna give this back. All right, turn that back on in a second. I think I did that earlier, so good times. So I'm gonna share a little bit about joy at Scattered Joy Ranch. Yes, this woman was quite amazing. About 15, 20 years ago, she was struggling herself with different issues and made the decision that she was going to trust God and follow God to start this ministry with animals. Over the next 15 years, she had done everything she could to support this ministry and help them to follow God. But during the pandemic, due to some difficulties with financing and also due to some difficulties with lots of people having free time and deciding to be fun to mess with animals. It came to the point where she thought she might lose her ministry. She thought she might need to stop what she's doing. And she asked God, I need help. I need you to help me to figure this out. She was in negotiations with another facility to potentially buy her space, but she wanted to be able to buy a new space that would work for her. And she told the story that one day she had a line on a facility out in Iowa that she was going to go check out across the border there. And she was on her way when she said that one of her good friends, one of her big ministry partners, called her after saying that she was in her front yard mowing and that she got a sense from God that she needed to check the real estate listings right then. And so she stopped what she was doing, she stopped her mowing, she ran inside, checked the listings, and just a few minutes before, a listing for a place in South Omaha came up. And she could sense that God was doing something. So she called her friend who was driving to Iowa, and after hearing the story, Joy stopped driving to Iowa and went straight south of Omaha to visit with the people about this facility. Not only was the facility available, not only was the facility perfect, but shortly thereafter, the money she needed in South Omaha, she was offered that amount of money and she was able to move. Even then, the story was crazy because it was about October. It was probably going to take till April to the people that could come and build the proper fencing to maintain the animals, and that was going to start cutting stuff a bit close. But right after everything closed, those fencers from Wisconsin, I believe, called and said, we can be there in 2 days. And so all within a matter of just a few weeks, God had answered every prayer, every situation, and by the end of October of that year, she was in that new facility. Those animals were there. She actually said that normally her animals are not big fans of moving because often many of them have come from difficult backgrounds. She said every last one of them happily and willingly got in their little cages, got in their transportation, and happily were driven an hour and a half south of Omaha. And she said it's because she knew that those animals knew they would be safe, they knew they would be loved, so they didn't have any problems. It was a beautiful story from Joy and an amazing thing, and I know it touched Tori just to hear this woman share her story, and if Tori was here, I'm sure she would have shared that even more beautifully than I would have. All right, our next story is from Chloe, from Joel at the Open Door.
This week we met a man named Joel at the Open Door Mission. Joel was in and out of jail from drugs and alcohol. He had gotten released from jail in December of 2022. He had no shoes and had an infection all over his leg that made it hard for him to walk. He had heard about Open Door and was trying to find it, but since there was a snowstorm, it prevented him from getting there. He was walking for a really long time and was leaning up against a pole at Casey's, and he told us about how he was just about to give up because he felt like nothing was there for him. He later on saw a van for Open Door and followed it. He joined the program in December and graduated from the Open Door program at the end of last month. He now helps run the food and kitchen service at Open Door. He talked about how he grew closer to God because he read his Bible in jail.
I also love Joel. Joel was an amazing story, and I think it wasn't until he finished his story that I realized that the difficult life that he was discussing was 6 months ago. 6 months ago, he was up against a pole, ready to give his life up, ready to be done because of how hard things had been and how hard things were going. And God called him just a half mile farther. He got the help he needed. He got the treatment he needed. He was freed from all that had gone wrong in his life and had then taken the step to help all of those that were in the same situation he was 6 months before. He could have gone and done anything. That man was talented. That man could go and do just about anything he wanted. But he chose to stay there. He chose to help run the kitchen. He chose to give back to all those that had helped him. He was, one of the most inspiring stories of the week for sure. Next, we have Joe sharing a story about Eddie.
Eddie was another person from the Open Door Mission, and his story was that when he was 17, his girlfriend at the time had broken up with him. And because of that, he was so upset that he decided that he was going to enlist in the Army, hoping that he wouldn't come back. And he did end up getting deployed to go to the war in Vietnam. But thankfully, he didn't succeed, otherwise I wouldn't be talking about him right now. And when he got back, he realized what all he would have missed if he wouldn't have and the life that wouldn't have been for him, and devoted his life to Christ after that.
Here, somebody that had lived a difficult life, had lived through difficult choices, and was here sharing their story with Joe and the others. It was just a really cool thing to see. Next, we have Dustin sharing the story of Heidi from the Beautiful Gate.
It's fine. It's on now. At the Beautiful Gate Street Ministry, we got the chance to talk and interact with the founder, Heidi. She first started her ministry just by right away handing out food, handing out water to people on the streets that need it, praying and spreading the word of God to wherever they needed it. And then after that, she was definitely, God's definitely blessed her with buildings and just the building she's currently in, right in the heart where the heart of the population that need Christ the most, that needs her help. And while we were there, we went on a prayer walk, and while we were on the prayer walk there, it really inspired me, because we were on there, and right is the place right we were in front of an alcohol store right in front of it, and this guy named Lorenzo was looking like he was going to walk straight into it. He had just gotten released from jail the day before, and she called him over and was talking with him, and that changed his life in that moment there, because I don't know what he was going to do when he was walking up to it, but she called him over, told him it's not a smart idea to go in there, and he later then followed her and went into the Beautiful Gate Ministry in there to get help. And also, just while we were there, she was definitely a person that could multitask. She was running so many different things, helping with worship there, helping people get food, water, everything they need, helping us, trying to figure out the little things that we could help out there. And while in there too, this is one of the coolest parts of what she was doing. Is she would stop everything she was doing to go talk and pray take about 5 minutes to pray for people, that just everybody in there that looked like they needed it. I mean, she was just truly inspiring.
Yeah, her ministry started with just praying for people. And even 20 years later, she would stop everything she was doing to pray for people, to remind them that God loved them, that God was with them, and that God wanted to help them. It was truly inspiring to see this woman who gave her whole life to follow God into this, let's just be honest, probably the most difficult neighborhood in all of Omaha. Just to give of her life every day, serving and making a difference. And I'll say this, of all the places we served, hers was the most impactful for me. I got to go there 2 years ago to see her as well, because even all of her volunteers to help her make the program work were also people that were participating in the programs that she was offering. So essentially there was this woman alone on an island, praying for people, loving people, making this huge difference, and she was serving alongside all of those people. And I thought of all the people that Jesus went and visited, and all the people that they would say, why are you hanging out with these people? Why are you doing these things? And I thought to myself, if Jesus were on the world right now, this is where Jesus would be. Right next to this woman, praying for people, loving people, caring about them, making a difference right in the heart of the most difficult places. Saying, I love these people. No matter what you all think of them, I love them and I care about them. Our next person is Alex, who's going to share about Seth at the African Community and Outreach Center.
So it was really cool to talk with Seth, because we were heading over to his, they call it their lighthouse church. It was a church that they were starting, and to go paint stuff. And of course, I made the stupid, I'll say it was stupid by my part. He's like, does anyone want to ride with me? And I was like, sure. Talked to him, and I was able to talk to him about the United Methodist Church and just my faith. And I wasn't thinking until later, I'm like, wait a minute, he could have just taken me and no one would have known. He could have. But after that, of course, when they were working, painting stuff, I was over there talking with them, and shared a connection with them as we're at this Lighthouse church, and Lighthouse kept coming up. And he was singing a song, it's My Lighthouse. And funny enough, I was like, oh yeah, I know that song. I was like, I know actions to that. And so we just got talking about that also, and it was just crazy because two people, what's the chances of us talking about lighthouses and then connecting over a song? It was just crazy experience.
We're a good match because neither one of them would stop talking. So it was good. There was no fear of it being snatched, but there certainly might have been a fear of them having a 4-hour conversation and forgetting what was happening. That was possible. So no, Seth was a pretty awesome guy. It was amazing to hear his story coming out of South Sudan and all that he was doing in the Omaha community. I did not know this, but apparently they have the largest population of Sudanese in the country in Omaha, and he's right in the center of it along with the rest of his family, making a difference, helping people to follow God and to seek all that God has for them in their lives. Finally, we have Derek sharing about Dick from Catholic Charities.
All right, so Dick is one of the few volunteers that we met at the Catholic Charities. I say few because there was actually very few people there helping, and when we were leaving, they were really hoping we would come back again the next day, because what we did there as a group, like the 10 of us, it all went smooth as can be, but they said normally they've got like 3, 4, maybe 5 volunteers that are not only having to pack everything, but then go outside, load it, and also then check people in. So, Dick was one of them that really touched me throughout the week, because I hadn't really served like this before, and you could tell Dick was a man that's been doing it for a long time. He knew most of the people coming through. He knew how to treat them well, know exactly what to say to them. I guess my story is a little different, sharing about Dick, because he didn't really share much of his story, but it was through his serving that you could tell his story was a man who's been walking a godly path for a long time.
Definitely the one guy that could have easily been sitting right here with us in Beersford, South Dakota, we wouldn't know. But he chose every day to go to that place and to serve and make a difference. And I told you how we rotated out because it was so hot. Dick didn't. Dick was there. Dick was there every day of the year, helping out, making a difference, especially if there's once a week afternoon service. We asked him, well, what happens in the winter when it's cold? He said, well, then it's cold. You put on more clothes. He's there making a difference every Wednesday, making a difference for these people. It was inspiring to see what can happen if you decide to start serving and make a difference in the lives of those in your community, and Dick certainly did. He was a main, real inspiration, I know, for Derek, definitely for myself and a few others that got to hang out with him. Now we're going to kind of ask a few simpler questions. Well, not simpler, maybe harder, I don't know. But some questions, we're just going to go down the line. I want you to share a little bit more about what this week did for you. So the first question is, what did you learn about yourself this week?
All right, so for me this week, I kind of already touched on it a little bit. It was the serving aspect of it. It was more the people that we were serving, because, you always hear everywhere that you hear just negative things about homeless people, like they're just not trying to do anything. They need to just go out and get jobs. Just everybody's saying they need to do this and that, and they don't understand their stories. This week was completely different. Almost everybody we encountered were some of the most grateful people that I've ever met. I mean, they were just like you and me, just in a harder situation that they're trying to find the right path to get on. Some of them are finally on that path, and you can tell they're just completely different people, and for me that just really opened my eyes. I don't generally think of like judging people, but this week really changed it. I couldn't walk in there and judge these people because they came out and were so thankful. I don't know how I would have felt if I'd walked in with a bad judgment and then they proved me completely wrong, which is what they did. So it was really a great week to find out a little bit more about myself and the people we served.
I'm about the same with him as with the stereotypes of homeless people, and that majority were trying. There were a few that just stuck in their ways of growing up like that, but a lot did try, and we're very grateful. And I also learned that helping people is a lot more fun than I realized. I normally don't like to help people. I don't know why, but it was really fun this week to see how grateful everyone was.
Something I learned this week is that connections do matter. And talking with one of the guys from the other youth group and saying, oh yeah, how I just, at the start of the week, I just got into their group and was talking to me. He's like, that's impressive. But it was also impressive to see how the 10 different organizations that we served, how each of them were connected in some shape, way, or form. Whether it was Heidi was connected to Seth's ministry, or Seth's ministry was connected to the Open Door, just how they were all connected together.
I learned a lot this week. I learned that you can't just begin judging people because you don't know what they've gone through or what they've experienced in their life. When you hear about homeless people, you begin to judge right away. And that was not the case this week. Because while we were serving food, they were also grateful for us being there. While we were serving food at Open Door, a lot of people just kept saying, God bless you, or thank you for everything you've done. And when we walked, my emotions from when I first walked into Sienna Francis' house and I walked out were completely different. Walking in, I didn't really know what to expect when I saw a lot of people waiting outside with tents or yelling at others. And once I started serving people food or bringing food to people, I saw how grateful they were and how they were just trying to get by.
This week I learned that I'm very quick to judge, and it's just I have these set stereotypes in my mind that just completely got shattered this week. Just take the opportunity to get to know someone before you judge them, and yeah.
I learned that there was so many more doors in my life that had been closed for so long, and I didn't realize that could be opened. One of the big ones is just like what everyone's talked about that we all experienced this week, is that when you hear about, when you see the news on TV and you see it that they show about homeless people, just all the terrible things, and like they said, not trying, not that they're not doing enough, but essentially they're normal people, just like all of us, just went through a rough patch. Then they got knocked down, but they're trying to get back up. And it was just truly amazing to see. I was at the Open Door Mission. I was the guy in charge of condiments, handing out condiments to people. And I mean, it was just amazing seeing the smiles on their faces, because most of them they've gone through rough patches, and none of them, they could have chose to be mean. They didn't have to be grateful. They didn't have to thank us, say anything to us. They could have just gone in their own separate ways and just not look back. But they made the choice to thank us for serving. Just talk to us, and that just opened my eyes to showing me that there's more to it, and I learned that me, a small kid living in Beersford, I can do more. I learned I can serve.
I'll say on behalf of Tori, she was challenged to speak in public, which is not her favorite thing to do, but she did an amazing job. She was able to speak to people, speak to our group, answer questions. She just did an amazing job, and I know from her perspective, all the anxiety inside of her, she didn't feel like she did a good job. Tori, you did an awesome job. You did a great job. We were all very proud of you for the way that you were able to talk and share what you were feeling and share your faith. It was really cool to see you overcome some of those fears to be able to do that. Our next question, we'll go back the other direction, is something you learned about God or your faith this week.
The biggest thing that I took away from this week is it's not just about everyone showing up to church each week. It's not about just reading the Bible. It's not about Bible studies, being actively involved in church functions. There's more to it. Yes, all these things are very important because it's part of who we are as Christians. But I learned that God is putting us in showing us different things with just being able to serve out there. Being a Christian's a big a big part of being a Christian, is about serving. It's not just about being in church. It's helping others that need help. Just stepping in to help make a difference. I mean, I can safely say that's the biggest part.
The thing I took away is that God doesn't just choose the big, rich, famous, amazing faith people to make a difference in the world. People of all types can make an impact on the world. God isn't looking for people with great faith, but individuals ready to follow him. So even like the homeless people who basically have nothing are still helping others. So
I learned that God's around even when you aren't watching. Knowing that God's just not around during Bible studies, church, praying, any of that. He's around anytime. So when people were telling their stories, that's when I really felt his presence.
I'll say just about how seeing when we went to the open door mission and how they're saying, oh, we need shorts, and then all of a sudden we're just pulling shorts out, and also having just the competitions between each other where the girls were doing the girl stuff, we were doing our stuff, and we weren't putting it in piles very often. Like we'd take it out, throw it in, and then we'd sort it out and bring it over and set it, and they're just have everything there. Or the time when we were at the Catholic ministry, and how hearing this from John and Derek, how they had a competition even though it shouldn't have been a competition.
He told us to have a competition. We followed directions.
I learned that God isn't just in the church, he's out everywhere, either guiding people through their rough patch in life or with just us and helping us through our lives.
I guess I'm just going to start with that I've been a Christian ever since I can remember, but there's been times it's hard when you physically can't see God, but this week proved any of those times when I've been doubting all wrong. Everything we did, we could see him, especially with the serving food and the packing and sorting. You could see all the donations coming in from people. They don't have to donate it, but they have because they want to. You could see it, all the people that are there spending their time serving. You could just see it in everything that we did. He was there, and I feel like if there was any doubts, and I guess I could speak for the group, if there was any doubts, God proved to all of us that he was there, and he is always working.
Entertaining this week, the liturgical lesson this week was the story of the mustard seed. The story of the little thing that seems insignificant that grew into a giant tree. We watched a lot of pretty amazing trees, didn't we? And we heard of how they all started as little mustard seeds, little insignificant little seeds that no one really thought much of. And we watched a bunch of trees this week. Well, here's the secret. A bunch of little seeds just got planted this week. There's some great things as these 7 grow into faith and into love. And I want you all to be prepared for what you're going to be hearing and what you're going to be seeing, because we have a youth group that is excited to serve, excited to make a difference, excited to get out of the doors and the walls of this place, because that's what we're called to do as well. We have 7 youth that have been called to follow, and I want us to be prepared to help them and nurture them as we go forth. So for our final question, we've asked them to share what they would like to see brought back here to Beersford Zion, to ask what could we do as a community to make a difference, because it isn't just a them thing, it's an us thing. And so I'd love to hear some ideas that you guys have.
I guess mine comes back to, again, all of our serving of food, whether it be we here at the church do another banquet or two instead of just the roast beef banquet, or maybe we start signing up more at the Uptown, the food bank, just something to where we open our doors to anybody that needs help. Maybe not even food, but just people that need support. Maybe we spend a day here that everybody that needs to come in, everybody that wants to be prayed for, or just time to talk with, we be there.
I'd say that we should just kind of like what he said with plugging into the community more and helping other things like the food or Faith in Action, yeah, helping them out with anything that they need.
I'll just kind of, the thing about serving, it just being able to do more. So like Derek said, even hosting like a banquet here, but even just going to different places and seeing what they need, because what they need may be not what we think they need, and just being able to help them. So going up to like the banquet or figuring out somewhere up in Sioux Falls or in Beersford where they need something and be able to help.
I think we all have around the same answers, but just going around the community and finding what everyone needs or what they just to help them out. So doing more banquets or feeding people or figuring out what everyone needs just to help them get by.
Yeah, I think that the banquets and stuff, I think everyone really connected to that one the most, and I think that would be fun.
I'm going to say what Pastor John has told us all week is as we went to organization to organization, seeing new experiences was to open our eyes to what we feel called to do. Like a lot of us up here, myself included, felt called to serve at the Open Door Mission. That was our favorite thing, most impactful, I think, experience was the Open Door Mission. My words to you is one of my favorite songs from Alan Jackson, The Little Man. It doesn't take people with money. It doesn't take governments. It doesn't take politicians. It takes people just like you, us and you guys, to just step up, make a difference in life. So what I'm gonna end with here is just find what you guys are passionate about, what you guys feel called to do from God. Just find that and get more involved in it.
Thank you. As you can see, it was a pretty amazing week. This is a pretty amazing group of kids. So to kind of close out, and we're going to close out worship here pretty quick as well. I don't think we have time for all the other stuff. I'm going to have our two adult leaders come up and share just a little bit about their impressions of our youth this week. So Allison and Megan, come on up. I'll have Megan go first because she got up here first. That was a test. It was a test. Sorry, too late.
So share our impressions of them? Seeing them work this week was very moving. I saw God work through all of them. If you notice in the pictures, I wasn't in a lot of them because I was the designated photographer. And I know they really enjoyed my photography skills. But yeah, like they said, the Open Door Mission was, I think, the most impactful for them. I was only there for Monday and Tuesday. But I know when I was helping the girls serve, we are all pretty introverted and not really outgoing. And we were greeting and talking to everyone who came through with no problems, uplifting their day, hopefully, and just working like we should. And even Joel came up and said that God was definitely working through us and put us all in the right spots, because we had one guy, where was he from? Do you remember? There was someone who came through the line and he didn't speak English, and he went on his phone he was from Guatemala, and he went in his phone into Google Translator and told someone to let us know how grateful he was that we were there and how much he appreciated our work. So it was really, really awesome to be there.
So I watched all of these 7 grow quite a bit in the course of a week. We have Tori and Dustin, who said that they wanted to incorporate going to the banquet and serving at least once a month into the youth group. They also said that they would love to incorporate devotions into the youth group. So like just continuously doing that praise. So going off the Guatemalan male, it was super funny. The first time he went through, Derek was trying to push off dessert on him, and he came back and told Derek that there was too much sugar in the desserts. Joe, he was able to keep up with Seth's drumming. Don't ask me how. he later goes, there was no constant beat at all. So, Alex, well, he'd like to run ahead in the zoo, and so we were all watching Alex in front and John in the back. Chloe, it was so funny to watch her serve at the Sienna Francis house. She was out actually in with the people serving lunches, and she was so courageous and would walk out there and deliver the lunches to them. Even after she was like, I noticed this about so many people, she was still willing to do it. Micaiah, she had a air of, we gotta make this fun, and it was actually really entertaining to watch Micaiah interact with everyone because she knew how to make everyone laugh even if they didn't mean to. Dustin, well, we laughed a lot on Thursday, way more than we should have. He got into a container once we found food in a container that had been sitting out in the heat, and he was just handing us the food so that way it would at least get put into the storage correctly. And then Tori, she just showed a huge maturity that we don't typically see in an 8th grader. And I can't say that I didn't watch them grow because I did. And I don't think any of them would be like, I'm not gonna go serve again.
Want to kind of leave with kind of one comment, just that I want you guys to hear. So this format where we have the youth come up on stage and share about their experiences, I was in another place where I found out later on that the pastor got badmouthed by other people in ministry by saying, your job is to share the gospel, and you didn't share the gospel this week. You just had a bunch of kids up there talking about serving. Folks, this is the gospel. These are kids who gave up a week to go share the good news of what Christ has done for them, and they wanted so desperately to share with others. They came into the week with judgment, presuppositions, all these ideas, and they came out of it with just the most amazing respect and care for these people that our society often rejects. They found peace and love and joy through their lives. The majority of people we served with this week were people that had been through much more difficult things than any of us did, and yet they gave their lives, the rest of their lives, to serve others, to care for others. They watched that, and it changed them. And they can't go back, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry for that, but I did it on purpose. They can't go back. So that by Wednesday, when they're coming to me demanding that we serve more, in my head, I'm like, yeah, that was kind of the idea. The idea was to make it about you. And we've talked about in this church, I can't drive this church forward. Luckily, in this church, I don't have to. You all understand what it means to care and love. The Shoes for Kids is a great example of what these kids are experiencing. Years ago, when Kathy goes, there's something we can do. And our church stepped forward to do that. These kids are going to start doing the same thing. And like I said, they're going to lead us forward. They're going to lead us into what God is calling because of their experiences this week. And I could not be more proud to be their pastor, their youth director, their person who does dumb things they get to laugh at and tell stories about. Because this is an amazing church. This is an amazing ministry. I'm just so happy to be here and continuing to have these ideas going forward. I'm excited to see what this church can do. Like I said last week, what happens if this church becomes known as a church that serves? What does that do not only for our community, what does it do for the greater community? What does it do for the Methodist Church, who right now is hurting with all that they're going through? To have a little beacon of light here in Beersford Zion saying, we're doing what God is calling us to do. We're moving forward unafraid into where God is calling us. What does that look like here at Beersford Zion? So we're going to close our service. I will say that, I'm a pastor, so I can't forget about the offering. So I will say on your way out, if you want to drop your offering in the gold baskets back, or the gold things back there, please do. Otherwise, we are going to end with our song, Sent Forth by God's Blessing. United Methodist Hymnal number 664. Go ahead and stand up. You guys can go sit down. What? Well, Go forth today, ready to catch glimpses of God's never-ending, unstoppable, and always present love at work in the world. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, go in peace. Amen.